I'm Ryan Wilson. That's former Titans GM Rand Carthon. And Rand, let's get to the breaking news of the day. Trent McDuffie is headed to the Rams. Here is the compensation. The Chiefs get the 2026 first round pick of the Rams. They have two of them. This is the number 29 pick. They also get a fifth and sixth round pick in this draft. And then they get a 2027 third round pick. So, first thing I want to hear from you is grade this for both the Rams and the Chiefs, and then tell me why this makes sense. And we'll start with the Rams.
I think this is an A for the Rams. I mean, Les Snead came out. I saw a statement this morning when I woke up. It says like we'd hope to come out of this with an All-Pro corner, kind of giving you the prelude to something was going on. But you get one of the young, up-and-coming corners in this league that's highly respected, a guy that has inside-outside versatility, and it's at a major position of need. I don't think there's a mock draft out there that don't have the Rams taking a corner in the first round. Because that's clearly a position of need for him. But now you get a all-pro corner in Trent McDuffie that now you have all-pro players at every level of the field just about. And so it made sense. And it goes back to, Les's original F them picks models. Instead of gambling and betting that one of these first-round picks is going to be the guy, let's go get a guy that we already know is a guy. And that's kind of been their model, and they've been successful doing it. So makes a ton of sense for them. And then if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, at some point you know you're going to have to flip this roster, and you're going to have to add some young players in there because this roster had gotten old, and they're still looking to bring back certain old guys. But now you have picks, in the present and in the future to help you build out the rest of that roster.
It's crazy that we're having conversations about the Chiefs rebuilding their roster, but before we get to them, I'm going to continue your praising of the Rams because, number one, Trent McDuffie is not an old head. He's not Ryan Wilson or even Rand Carthon old. He's 25.
Don't put me in that. You the old head.
Our hairlines are telling the same story. That's all I'm going to say. He's only 25 years old. Almost certainly they're going to give him a new deal, which makes sense. But more than that, we spent all last week at the Combine talking about the NFL, especially on defense, moving to positionless players. That is Trent McDuffie. He can play in the slot, as you mentioned. He can play outside. Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator, likes using those players that can do a bunch of different things. And they also run a lot of late rotational stuff. And Trent McDuffie is one of the best when it comes to athleticism and ball hawking skills in space. In terms of talking about the Chiefs, because they have needs, offensive tackle, defensive line, obviously in the defensive backfield, Brian Cook, his contract's up, Jalen Watson, his contract's up, and I don't know how many of those guys they can bring back. So is this team better off right now with the additional picks and what they can do with them, or were they better off 24 hours ago?
Again, because it's a crapshoot. We don't know who they're going to pick. We don't know who's going to be available. I'll say just based off the question, they were better 24 hours ago. But I think having as many picks as you got out of this, a first round pick, a fifth and a sixth round pick this year, and then a third round pick next year, you're well positioned to get guys. And if one team you don't really particularly worry about in terms of draft and secondary is the Kansas City Chiefs. They found value in just about every portion of the draft in terms of getting guys in the secondary. But, you mentioned some of the free agents they have. You mentioned their needs at offensive line, defensive line. Like now, knowing that you don't have to commit, let's call it $20 million a year, $20+ million a year to Trent McDuffie, now that opens you up to being able to bring back a Leo Chenal or even, a high-end backup guy like Charles Omenihu. You're now able to bring back some of those guys that you've had in the fold over the recent years. So you appreciate the way they've gone about it. They knew they weren't going to pay him. And honestly, if you look at it, I was a part of the L'Jarius Sneed trade after him being an all-pro corner for the Chiefs, and they weren't willing to necessarily pay him. And now Trent McDuffie, who's been an all-pro, they're not willing to pay him. Maybe this is the Chiefs model, and they trust their ability to be able to draft and develop DBs and know that they don't have to pay him. So you have that luxury of having a guy, you bring him along, you get everything you need out of him, and when it's time to pay him, you could trade him and get some high-end draft capital to continue to build your roster.
And by the way, they have picks 9 and 29, just to reiterate here. And I was doing the mock draft math while you were speaking here. So at 9, they could get someone like Jeremiah Love, which is bonkers to think about in that backfield. But if they wanted to go a little more traditional, they could get a Monster Delane, who we spoke with, the LSU cornerback, at 9. And then at 29, they could get someone like, hopefully, fingers crossed, right tackle Blake Miller out of Clemson. And then I would turn it around and say to you, maybe that evens out the trade even in just the first round, because while Trent McDuffie has proven, as you noted, in an all-pro, Monster Delane plus Blake Miller maybe gets you at least even. And then with the understanding that you have those other picks available, and if you want to throw Jeremiah Love in there instead of Monster Delane, maybe that gets you over the hump. But I think the point is, and Brett Veach, I'm sure, certainly thought about this, is that, as you've noted, you're thinking long term. And if you can get two guys that are 21, 22 years old, they're going to play for another 5 to 8 years. That's the math you're doing.
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily lock them into taking a corner at 9 or 29. Again, you look at their history, you look at them being able, to get guys in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round that become good quality starters. So they trust in their ability to draft these guys and develop them. So I don't think just because you trade Trent McDuffie, it doesn't lock you in at a corner on either one of those first round picks. You can have other pressing needs, addressing the offensive line, addressing the backfield. Who knows? Dressing receiver. Receiver could be a spot that they could go to in this draft. Pass rusher.
Let me play this game with you real quick. So at pick 9, let's say at pick 29, they're gonna eyeball Blake Miller, the right tackle out of Clemson. So let's just take that off the board for this conversation. So at pick 9, and we'll say these guys are all on the board: Jeremiah Love, Caleb Banks, the defensive lineman out of your Florida Gators there, or Mekhi Lemon, the wide receiver out of USC. If you're Brett Veach and Andy Reid, which one makes the most sense, knowing that you're going to try to get a tackle in 29?
Jeremiah Love. You go best player available to you on the board, and it's a player at a position of need. And until Patrick Mahomes gets back and he's healthy, because we don't know where he's going to be to start the season, you're going to need to rely on someone other than him to carry this offense. So why not put it on the young runner out of the backfield that can handle 20-plus carries a game and then give you that explosive nature that your offense has been missing out of the backfield? So to me, that's an easy one. You take Jeremiah Love.
Okay, I was trying to set you up for a Caleb Banks layup because I thought maybe Caleb Banks next to Chris Jones would get you going, but you think explosivity in the backfield is where you have to start this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's your best player available. And I have Jeremiah Love graded above Caleb Banks. And so you go best player available, and then it just so happens to be at a position of need.
All right.
And the help. You were going to get me.
Yeah. Once again, foiled by the smarter of the two ball guys on your screen right now. All right, before we break, if you're watching us on YouTube, let us know in the comments who you think won this trade, both short-term and long-term.